Welcome back to today's Explainer. We're skipping the usual preamble right now because we've got a truly terrifying, real-life account to unpack today. We are heading straight into the dense, unexplored jungles of Uttarakhand in India. It is a place of just absolutely breathtaking beauty, but as we're about to see, some parts of this wilderness harbor some dark, deeply unsettling secrets that are definitely better left undisturbed.
Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine you're a college student. You want to celebrate a birthday with your friends, so you come up with a plan. Well, that's exactly what four friends, Badal, Abhishek, Ayush, and Aryan did. For Abhishek's birthday, they completely lied to their parents, packed up 2 scooters, and snuck off for a camping trip in an incredibly remote, unexplored area of the wilderness. They were looking for adventure, zero restrictions, and a night they would never forget. And, well, unfortunately, they got exactly that.
Section 1. A Birthday in the Woods. The location they found seemed like a pristine paradise, far from the tourist spots, right by a mountain stream. They pitched a tent, blasted some music, and started cooking raw chicken. They were totally isolated. The nearest tiny village was a full kilometer up the mountain. And this timeline here tracks a rapid, terrifying escalation of dread. It starts off innocently enough, around 8:30 p.m. Ayush has this habit of offering a portion of his food to the gods before eating, so he leaves a piece of raw chicken on a rock. But by 9 p.m., the meat is totally gone, leaving only perfectly clean bones behind. And you know, a wild animal just wouldn't do that. By 10:30, they're huddled inside, watching these dark shadows pass over the fabric of their tent. And here is where they made a huge mistake. Assuming it was just a local trying to mess with them, the boys yelled and swore at the shadows. The response? Their heavy, boiling pot of chicken was violently kicked and thrown 20 feet away into the pitch-black darkness.
Section 2. The Unseen Terror Awakens. That flying pot instantly shattered any illusion that this was just a wild animal. I mean, animals don't play football with boiling heavy pots, right? The vast open wilderness suddenly felt incredibly claustrophobic. They realized they had provoked something unnatural. The sheer terror peaked when they heard a voice right outside their tent. But it wasn't a normal voice. The source describes it as a heavy, unnatural female voice. It didn't sound entirely human. It was incredibly deep, echoing from the darkness just inches away from where the boys were trembling. It just said, "Why are you here? Go away."
Then came this supernatural anomaly that finally forced them to run. A massive, violent gust of wind began shaking their tent so aggressively they thought it was literally going to tear apart. But when they finally built up the courage to peek outside, the trees were completely dead and still. Not a single leaf was moving in the forest. The wind was only hitting their tent. Absolutely panicked, they abandoned almost everything and ran for their lives up the mountain toward that village a kilometer away.
Section 3. The Village's Dark Secret.
After a frantic sprint, where they actually reported seeing a horrifying apparition of an angry girl and a tiger, they finally reached the village and started desperately knocking on doors. An older resident cautiously took the terrified boys in. Now, what's really interesting about this is the cultural geography. When he heard where they camped, the man's face just dropped. The boys had camped at a gadera, which is a local term for a mountain stream. The villager explained that absolutely no one from their village had gone down to that gadera for nearly 2 years. They hadn't just found a quiet spot, they had trespassed into an abandoned, cursed zone. The villager then broke down the tragic backstory. A few years prior, a local girl was tragically killed by a tiger right near that stream. Out of fear, the villagers didn't give her a proper cremation. They simply discarded her remains in the water. Her enraged spirit then possessed a young village boy, driving him to brutally slaughter and drink the blood of goats. To stop the carnage, the villagers had to trap the spirit near the stream using a dark ritual that involved a black rooster sacrifice. The entity felt profoundly disrespected by the village, and it was violently enraged by the boys partying on her cursed ground.
Now, the ritual to trap the spirit had been performed by a local Paswan. In local folklore, a Paswan is a shaman or healer who channels a deity spirit to perform exorcisms. The Paswan had successfully bound the entity to protect the village, but his strict instruction to everyone was to abandon the stream entirely. Without knowing, the boys had walked right onto the entity's prison.
Section 4. Possession and Escape.
As the villager finished telling this terrifying story, the boys thought they were finally safe inside the house. But they were horribly wrong. The horror hadn't stayed at the stream. It had followed them right up into the village.
While sitting in the living room, Ayush suddenly began breathing really heavily, panting almost like an animal. His hands contorted into these bizarre, stiff gestures. The older villager recognized the signs immediately and tried to apply sacred ash to their foreheads. But before he could even reach Ayush, the boy bolted out the door, sprinting back down the pitch-black mountain toward the cursed stream with a superhuman speed that completely defied logic.
The villagers scrambled a rescue party and immediately called the Paswan. When they reached the stream, what they saw was pure nightmare fuel. They found Ayush in the dark, eating the raw chicken that had been knocked over earlier. When he spoke, it was in that exact same heavy female voice, promising to kill the boys one by one. Terrifyingly, the witnesses even reported seeing a dark shadow standing right behind Ayush, mimicking his every movement. The Paswan had to step in and perform a highly intense physical exorcism, chanting and striking Ayush's head until the boy finally collapsed unconscious.
The boys abandoned their gear and fled in their cars the very next morning. But the terror wasn't over. On the ride back, Ayush woke up laughing demonically, turning to his friends and warning, "You will die here too." Out of nowhere, a car tire violently burst, despite having zero physical puncture or damage. Realizing the entity was still actively fighting them, they blasted the Hanuman Chalisa, a sacred Hindu hymn, on the car stereo. This stalled the physical attacks just long enough for Ayush's family to rush him to a spiritual guru's ashram.
Section 5. A lifelong consequence.
So the crucial point is, this wasn't just some spooky night they could brush off and laugh about later. The guru managed to save Ayush and protect the boys, but he did so by tying a protective thread, a Raksha Sutra, around their wrists. But here's the terrifying catch. The power of this specific protective thread only lasts for exactly 21 days.
Because the thread expires in 21 days, these four friends are now tied to the land forever. To survive, they literally must return to that specific guru every 20 days to have the thread renewed. If they miss that window, the guru warned the entity would pull them right back and kill them. Because of this, their life trajectories are completely chained to their hometown. They can't take jobs abroad, they can't relocate to a different state, they can't even take an extended vacation. One single mistake cost them their geographical freedom for the rest of their lives.
Section 6. The power of belief.
As this explainer draws to a close, it's fascinating to look at the theological insights from the source material. Like, why did this happen at night? The source breaks this down impartially through a really interesting multi-faith lens. During the day, or the holy hours, the world is filled with prayers across all religions. Hindu temple bells, Islamic namaz, Sikh ardas, Christian daytime prayers. This generates a massive collective shield of positive energy. But post 9 p.m., the world enters a spiritual blank period. The collective prayers stop, leaving the night as an unprotected blank space where negative entities are free to roam without any spiritual resistance.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate takeaway about protection. The source points out that merely playing a religious chant on a speaker like the Hanuman Chalisa isn't just some magic spell. Words alone don't repel entities. Instead, chanting empowers your willpower. It strengthens your personal aura. It's your total unwavering belief in a higher power that creates the ultimate shield, making the entity smaller than your faith. If you don't actually believe, well, the words are really just noise.
Which leaves us with a chilling final thought. So many people claim they want to seek out the paranormal, to dabble in dark tourism, or test out urban legends just for the sheer thrill of it. But when the stakes are your own life or your lifelong freedom, is risking it all really worth experiencing the unknown? Sometimes it's just better to leave the dark undisturbed. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.